Tonight on CTV, vaping has become an epidemic among young people. We'll tell you how it's affecting CSU students later on.
Then we take an exclusive look at a new on-campus clinical research lab that's got students excited for the future.
And as we come up on Hurricane Maria's one-year mark, we talk to one student who's still feeling its effects. All this and more starting now on CTV. Good evening, Rams, and thank you for joining us. I'm Emma Iannacone.
And I'm Lauren Willson, filling in for Ryan Christ. We begin tonight with breaking news from the Fort Collins Police Department. Despite resigning, a Fort Collins police officer has been found not guilty of using excessive force in an arrest from earlier this year. In March, an off-duty police officer responded to a dispatch call of a shoplifting suspect reportedly fighting with a Target staff member. The officer located the disturbance and attempted to take the woman into custody while she verbally and physically resisted him. Another officer arrived on scene and the two used, quote, less than lethal force to take the suspect into custody. She later pled guilty. The body cam footage, which you're seeing here, has been reviewed and investigated by the district attorney's office, who determined the officer did not violate any laws.
That we have high standards here at the Fort Collins Police Services. And if we ever find that we do not rise to the level of the expectations of not only ourselves but this community, we will hold ourselves accountable as we have in this case.
It may not be something a lot of us think about, how certain berries can make older women's hearts healthy, but a new clinical research lab on campus is bringing cutting-edge food research to the forefront. Food science and human nutrition student Kiri Mitchell gets to spend her days surrounded by delicious food and do what she loves. Currently, she's studying how blueberries affect cardiovascular health in menopausal women, and the newly renovated clinical research lab at the Food Science and Human Nutrition Department at CSU is making the research easier.
I think it will really help with all of our human research as well as our clinical studies.
The new Functional Foods and Human Health Laboratory is located on the second floor of Gifford Building, which provides easier access for students like Allegra Vasquez.
It's around the corner from our study lab that we currently work in, so it's a lot more easy to access and a lot more machines and different techniques that we get to use than we would having to go to a different lab and having to spend more time in transit.
The lab will be used primarily to study how food components and chemicals can increase or decrease the risk of chronic diseases. Lab Director Sarah Johnson says renovating the lab helps graduate and undergraduate students get better results.
The purpose of this program is to catalyze new research, to improve existing infrastructure, to not only enhance our current capabilities, but to enhance and catalyze future research capabilities.
Thanks to the new lab, there will be more research and more berries for Mitchell. It looks like a great place to work. You can read more about the renovated laboratory on collegian.com.
The body of a police officer was pulled from Horsetooth Reservoir on Monday afternoon has been identified as 32-year-old Yuri Thomas, a member of the Johnstown Police Department. According to Poudre Fire Authority, Thomas was swimming in the reservoir with his wife when he went underwater and did not resurface. Thomas was flown to the medical center of the Rockies after being pulled from the water, but unfortunately did not survive. The Johnstown's Police Department has set up a memorial outside the police station for community members to pay their respects.
Earlier this year, during a college visit to CSU's campus, the police were called on two Native American teens after a parent felt nervous in their presence. A letter was sent from the Colorado chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union to CSU earlier today. The letter says the university needs to take more action to prevent bias-based calls for service from directing law enforcement actions. In the letter, ACLU recommends CSU implement more training for officers and dispatchers to better handle situations concerning potential racial bias. CSU spokesman Mike Hooker responded to the letter in an email statement saying CSU has been communicating with the ACLU over the summer about efforts to implement well-researched recommendations that build on the long-standing work of the Native American Cultural Center and other CSU offices. For updates and further information about this story, you can visit collegian.com.
E-cigarettes, most commonly known as vapes or juuls, are skyrocketing in usage among young adults, especially on college campuses. Unfortunately, these vapes have similar negative health effects to smoking cigarettes. Despite that, a growing number of CSU students are using them to get through the day.
Chris Liston is a biomedical and chemical engineer major who vapes while he studies. He claims that the juice he puts in his vape device helps him calm down while he's doing his homework.
I just tried it just for the flavor, and it tasted really good. It was relaxing. I was kind of into it. I just didn't really want to get addicted, so I bought it with the intention of just getting juices without nicotine and just to kind of help relax myself.
Chris isn't the only one who is finding his way to vaping and e-cigs. It's part of a growing national trend.
We do a health survey on campus every 2 years, and the survey just started measuring e-cigarettes or vaping use starting in 2015. And between 2015 and 2017, we've actually seen a pretty dramatic increase in the number of students that report using e-cigarettes pretty regularly. So I would say it's at least doubled for women on campus and tripled for men on campus just within that 2-year period.
The increase of vaping is taking place across the globe. Vaping has increased by an astounding 30 million from 2011 to 2018, according to a recent, in-depth BBC report. So if vaping is this new hot trend, what is it? Why is it increasing? And why is it so dangerous?
Vaping, as opposed to putting a lighter to a cigarette, vape is just, it's made of 4 different chemicals. You have your flavoring, your nicotine, and then vegetable glycerin and propylene glycol, which you could find in some of your medicines and your foods. And it just gets heated up in liquid form and turns into vapor, and then you inhale that vapor. Vaping's more convenient, so it's being used a lot more. As opposed to going through a couple cigarettes a day, teens are vaping all day, every day. So you're getting much more nicotine throughout your system.
The addictive nature of nicotine is what makes it so difficult to quit, but there is help here on the CSU campus.
So if you want to quit smoking, we do have a staff member who is a trained coach, and you would just call the health network and say that you want to make an appointment to talk about quitting smoking or quitting vaping, and you get 5 sessions with that coach, and that's already included in their health fee.
CSU Health Center officials point out that vaping in the long run is not considered a healthy or safe replacement for cigarettes. I'm Ryan Christ, CTV News.
One of the popular vaping products, known as Juuls, has just been ordered by the FDA to limit their marketing toward young people within 60 days, or they risk being taken off the market.
The annual University Picnic and Presidential Fall Address will take place in the Oval on October 3rd at 11:30 in the morning. The University Picnic, which is now a CSU tradition, was originally held in 1997 as a thank you to the university community after the Spring Creek flood. In his fall address, President Frank will speak on highlights from the last year and goals for the coming year.
In the midst of hurricane season and the massive storm that has recently hit the East Coast, we remember Hurricane Maria, the devastating storm that hit the United States territory of Puerto Rico 1 year ago today. CTV reporter Marlo Lundak met with a CSU student to talk about impact and recovery.
I loved growing up there, honestly. It was very special, the community, the people.
Ana Delgadillo is a native Puerto Rican that came to the U.S. after high school to study here at CSU. Delgadillo was in the U.S. when Hurricane Maria hit. Though she's no stranger to hurricanes, she says Puerto Rico underestimated Maria after Hurricane Irma.
Irma passed, and it wasn't as bad as everyone thought it was going to be. So for Maria, after people saw that, they were hopeful that it was going to be more or less the same.
However, after Maria passed, the island was left without power. Delgadillo recalls the week where she couldn't contact her mother, who was still on the island.
So it was just really a moment of high anxiety, like I've never ever felt before. So it was just a lot of fear.
When she finally got in contact with her mother, there were tears, but she was safe. Delgadillo said she felt helpless. The recovery of Puerto Rico was slow, mainly due to lack of power. Her family focuses on day-to-day survival.
It was chaos for the longest time. It still is a little bit. But without the powers, it's too hard to recover, and that took way too long to put back together. So
Delgadillo says feelings for her family have resurfaced since Florence hit the East Coast earlier this month, and coping isn't easy.
It feels too real because it was such a strong force that hit them. That is just really hard to forget. This is too much for them. So they have to avoid seeing any kind of videos or remembering what happened.
In initial reports, only 64 were reported dead from the hurricane, but a study done by Milken Institute School of Public Health at the George Washington University reported that nearly 3,000 died from effects of the hurricane. In a statement earlier this month, President Trump denied the study's legitimacy. Delgadillo says those comments are simply disrespectful.
It hurts. It hurts to see that the president doesn't really care that much to really look into it and admit or just accept that this is what happened.
A year later, Delgadillo says things could be better, but Puerto Rico is still recovering. With Hurricane Florence barely behind us, she offers advice to other students that might be affected by its impact.
Deal with what's happening as a community. You can't just really be on your own because you're not going to survive.
For more information about this story, you can visit collegian.com.
12 different Fort Collins breweries will be showcasing their beer at the 2018 American Beer Festival this weekend in Denver. The festival, with an estimated 60,000 attendees, will provide beer for 800 breweries across the country. Fort Collins' large presence won't only be felt at the festival, but beers from the area will be poured in bars around the event as well. The breweries in attendance will compete for gold, silver, and bronze medals, which will be presented Saturday morning. Well, that's all we have for you from News Tonight. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you spending part of your evening with us. I'm Emma Iannacone.
And I'm Lauren Willson. Thanks again for joining us. Stay tuned right up next. We've got Carson Porterfield with the weather.